Hello everyone, this is Marlon from the University of Texas Austin. Welcome to the Demystifying Majors series where we answer your questions about different majors. Today we're going to talk about the advertising major at UT. I have a very special guest and now we're back in person. Actually, this is our first video in person, at least mine, so I'm really excited. And we have Barrett Sean right here, but I'll let him introduce himself.
My name is Barrett Sen. Pronouns are he, him. I am a senior here at UT, originally from Frisco, Texas, just right outside of Dallas. And I'm a double major in psychology and advertising.
All right, Barrett, so thank you. You are double majoring in advertising and psychology. We're going to focus today on advertising. And just to get into the conversation right now, why did you choose advertising, and when did you know that you wanted to major in advertising?
So when I originally came to UT as a freshman, I was just majoring in psych. And I really liked it. Like, the stuff I was learning was interesting, but probably like a year in, or 6 months to a year in, I felt like I was kind of missing something. I think I really wanted like a creative outlet to express myself somehow. So I originally applied to one major freshman year. I think just to switch majors, it was arts and entertainment technologies, and I didn't get into that one. But then I wanted to keep looking, and so I was just scrolling through the majors on the UT website one day, and I saw advertising, and I was like, that's cool because it has like aspects of business, but it also has like a lot of venues where you can express yourself creatively. So I first applied to advertising in like halfway through my sophomore year after I had taken the intro to advertising class. And I had a great professor, Professor Dudo, here at UT. And he was just an awesome guy. He was like super enthusiastic about everything. And I really had fun like learning about all of the stuff in advertising and even just like the history of it and how it originally started. And so, yeah, I applied to originally change my major. And then I felt like a couple days later, I was like, this is not exactly what I wanted to do. Like, I didn't want to give up psychology entirely. So then I emailed somebody and had my application changed to add it on as a double major. And a couple weeks later, I finally got the acceptance and I was like super happy about it. So that's when the passion for it originally started.
Perfect. So you started as a psychology major, and I'm guessing that there was some type of uncertainty when trying to add another major, advertising in this case. So what was your greatest fear before applying to the advertising major, and how did you overcome it?
I guess my greatest fear going into it, well, I guess there's two things. First of all, just starting a year and a half into college, I felt like I would be behind on a lot of the requirements that I needed, just because generally with the majors, there's a 4-year plan and they want you to take like certain classes each year and each semester specifically. So that was a little worrying to me at first. And then my other fear was probably just that I wouldn't be creative enough. I thought that I hadn't really taken any classes or had anybody to mentor me in like learning these creative aspects of advertising. And so that was also another fear of mine. It was kind of a realization that I had going through advertising. 2 realizations I had. One is that like not all aspects of advertising you necessarily have to be creative in. There is there's a bunch of different sections of advertising, one of which is creative. But if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. There's also like strategy, there's account planning, and those are for more like, you're still creative in that position, but you're not using like creative execution skills. You're more like applying your intellect and your problem solving skills, I guess, to solve things there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, advertising is not like, creativity is not the most important thing. I think like having drive is super important, and being able to problem solve is like the most important skill in itself. So I learned that along the way.
So since you're double majoring, I feel like you have another major to compare and contrast, whenever things are not going well and things like that. So what do you love and hate about advertising?
I don't know if this is specific to UT or not. It probably is, because UT has #1 advertising and PR school in the world. It's so incredible, but the biggest difference I noticed coming from the College of Liberal Arts was just like how much the professors at Moody like truly care about you. And like, I've had so many professors in Moody that are just like inspirational to a crazy degree, like people that I would want to call like mentors, friends, like really integral people in your lives. And like, even if you don't go out of the way to like talk to the professors every day after class, like even if you don't do those things, you still feel like you have a connection with them, because they're so like personable in class. They're so respectable. They like understand your boundaries and like how everybody's at a different place in their lives. Like I was talking about earlier, like there's all these different categories in advertising, but these professors work to acknowledge where your strengths and weaknesses are. Mm-hmm. So that is something I definitely love about advertising, is just like, and like the amount of connections that you can make. A lot of these professors, I think, would be more than willing to like give you connections. Like most of them have gone through the industry themselves, have worked years in like account planning, or some of them are like brilliant creative directors themselves. And they always are like willing to get a foot in the door for you. Especially if they see something in you, they will definitely go out of their way to like make sure that somebody's speaking for you, somebody's standing for you. This also might be like kind of personal to me, but I know I'm a pretty like introverted person. I don't think I'm like crazy like social or outgoing in most regards. And advertising, something that you really have to get used to if you're like me, is that you're almost always going to be working in a team setting. And so like from literally the first advertising class to now the last one that I'm taking, the capstone class, it's just been like working in groups like 95% of the time. And sometimes that's an amazing thing. And then sometimes not so much. Just going back, like, because I'm introverted, sometimes like sometimes I take a backseat role and I voice my opinion when I think I have a really good idea, or like when I have a strong opinion one way or another. But then in some groups, like I recognize that there's also people like me, like there's also introverted people. And so then in a scenario like that, I'm kind of more willing to take up like a bigger, more present, like leadership role. Sometimes, again, that imposter syndrome comes in to the point where you're like, am I as good as these people? Right. Like, are my thoughts as good as these people? Should I even be saying my thoughts out loud? Because like, is it just going to get shut down? Or people just not going to say anything, especially over Zoom? Like, there have been a couple times over Zoom where like I've said an idea or something where I'm like, okay, this could work. And then it's just like crickets, you know? And it sucks, but you have to learn that like, my idea is not always the best. Like, even if nobody acknowledges it, like, what does it matter? Like, we're still going to work together to come up with good ideas as a team. And you just kind of have to move past that. But the group setting can definitely be really good sometimes, or really bad.
Cool. So you're a senior, you've been here 4 years. Based on all of your experiences, what has been your favorite and your least favorite class in the advertising major?
Good question. One of my favorite is one I'm in right now. It's called Consumer Behavior with Professor Brad Love. He's an incredible guy. He's just super understanding and caring. And being in that class, it really feels like you're friends with him, you know? But then we're also learning things that are incredibly applicable to the major, and honestly life outside of that too. Just talking about not even specifically consumer behavior, but just more generally what influences people to do things or act certain ways. Mm-hmm. We've been reading a super interesting book called Inside the Nudge Unit that he's required, and it kind of tells stories of all of these different like nudges that happen in government, in business, but just little things that happen that drastically influence the way that we as humans act and go about our lives. Some other great professors I've had, Lisa Lewis, she taught, I think it's Integrative Communication Management is the name of the course. Again, super interesting class where you're kind of doing like case studies, case analysis of these important campaigns that have happened in the past. And the way it's structured is you kind of analyze it yourself, but then you're also coming up with, before you know how the campaign really played out, like all of the specifics of it, you're kind of coming up with ideas of like how you would do it as well. And so you're analyzing like all of the important factors, like this campaign needs to accomplish this, this, and this. And then you're learning to recognize all of the asks that are coming from like a creative brief or something like that, and then developing ideas to apply everything there. So that's a super valuable class that really teaches you a lot of necessary skills. Regarding classes I didn't like, it's funny because like I've always wanted to teach myself and practice being more creative. Mm-hmm. And so one semester I took a class, I can't remember the exact title, but it was like digital graphic design or something like that. Again, another advertising class. And the course in theory, it was super interesting, but basically all we were doing is we were learning how to use applications in the Adobe suite, like Photoshop, Lightroom, and I believe Illustrator, and a little bit of Premiere. So I was super excited about the class, but in the end, we were basically just reading out of the official Adobe textbooks and kind of copying like step for step, like how to do these things, and creating you were creating a product or a finalized like photo or graphic thing, like that it was showing you how to do. Like you weren't applying it to like what you were wanting, mm-hmm. But you were making something specific like that the textbook was walking you through. And I understand like how that can help learn like basic skills, but going through it, I ended up learning that like I knew most of the tools that it was trying to teach me in Photoshop, or like how to drag a brush, or just like mundane things, like easy things in those applications. I was hoping for a little bit more than that, but I also know that like that class is probably just a springboard. Like it teaches you the most basic steps, and then from there you kind of have to practice and apply it yourself outside of class. But I do wish there were more projects in the class that like were less instructed, and instead it was like come up with an idea, make whatever you want, but like using these tools or using some of these steps. Instead it was just like follow the textbook and create this one uniform picture or video or something like that. And that's all the grades were. So I just wish there were more chances in that class, more grades in that class that forced us to apply ourselves.
Now, with all of this experience that you have in both majors, what would be any advice that you'll get to students wanting to major in advertising?
One of the first things I would say, and this goes for people that advertising might not even be a major that's on their radar at this point, but I just want to let people know that like advertising is not just making commercials. Like I feel like a lot of people have that conception. Like, oh, you're just gonna be making like crappy like Super Bowl commercials. And that's really like not what the majority of people are doing. Like there's account, there's strategy, there's media, there's creative, and there's PR. So you've got all of these different avenues that you can be doing advertising under. Like it's not just a commercial. You could be planning experiential events. You could be like writing up a really good piece of copy that like conveys a brilliant idea that you have. You could be creating advertisements if that's something that you really want to do, but it's just much more than that.
All right, man. Well, I think this was great. I really appreciate your expertise on the advertising major. Thank you all for watching, and I guess I'll see you next time.